Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the epic conclusion of Season 2 of 3 out of 10 anime fans recommend you check out this podcast if you ever get reincarnated into another world, aka 3 out of 10 anime. This is episode 9 of Season 2, our grand finale. Before we go into our off season, take a little bit of a break to rest, relax, and recharge, get together with family for the holidays, and then come back strong at the beginning of Q1 2023 for season 3. We have some crazy plans in the works, so get excited for season 3, but we're going to put a bow on season 2 with one of the most prolific anime of all time.
He's not
We
kidding.
are going to cover Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Fullmetal Alchemist.
Fullmetal Alchemist.
Fullmetal Alchemist. This show
Alchemist
is all about having fun conversations to rank anime based on a standard set of criteria so they can be compared, contrasted, and recommended. We discuss a different show or movie each week, so whether you're a seasoned weeb or new to the genre, we know you'll have a good time. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We're glad you're here. You should go check out some of our other episodes, especially some sleeper picks that we just talked about before this show, like A Place Further Than the Universe or To Your Eternity, two of our highest rated shows of all time. Go check out those underrated episodes. But here's our agenda for our episodes. Again, welcome. First 5 minutes, we give our first impressions in one sentence. We recap our feelings from the show. Then we go into our personal enjoyment, which is a scale of 1 to 10 based on our own personal rubrics for how much we enjoyed watching the show. We take a little intermission for some fun facts from Skyler, and then we end with our technical assessment, which is a 1 to 10 ranking based on a collective rubric we all come to a conclusion on together based on 4 criteria. And then finally, at the end, we give some comparisons, recommendations for what you should check out, and we make an announcement for next week's show, which will not be happening this time. However, we will mention the bonus episodes. So, I'm Brett.
I'm Skyler.
And I'm Braydn.
We are your hosts from the United States. We each have varying opinions, tastes, and backgrounds, which should result in some interesting and relatable dialogue, no matter who you are. Spoiler warning, we're going to go over the whole show. We open the whole kimono and leave nothing out, and also mature content notification for this show. There is mature content. But without further ado, how would you guys summarize your feelings about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood in one sentence? No movies, not Fullmetal Alchemist, just the Brotherhood series in one sentence.
Oh, I got it.
Go for it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one for a minute because I just finished watching, doing a rewatch of the whole stinking thing. And crew, earnestly, coming from a place as someone who's, this is now our 26th episode of doing anime critique and have watched some on 100 odd anime, I can say that this is for me, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is for me the epitome of anime.
Wow.
It is the king of the heap. It is not perfect, but it is the essence of anime. That is my sentence.
Wow.
Nice.
That's epic. Skyler, what do you got?
So I'm actually going to kind of go along with Braydn and say that Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is a masterclass on how to write an engaging, rich story with just really intense characters, dialogue, and just it is a masterclass in how to do anime.
Heck yeah. Okay, I'm gonna follow up. And I'm going to echo what with what you guys said, but I'm going to add a shocking twist. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is deserving of its spot as one of the greatest anime of all time. But I really didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy it. There's my one sentence.
And as simple as that is for you, Brett, it does carry a lot of weight within the show.
I know.
So
that one...
We don't need to say any more here.
I can't emphasize how in the minority I am here. Like, there are not many people that dislike this show, and I'm gonna fully explain my reasons. But yeah, I just wasn't. It just wasn't for me.
It's not quite to this level, but a meme came to mind of there are dozens of us.
There are dozens of us.
Maybe not that extreme, but yeah.
There's at least 6 of us that don't. No, even if you try like looking on YouTube for like why I don't like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, you're not gonna find a whole lot. You're just
Actually,
you're really not.
I found but recently, if you know the YouTuber Ludwig or the Twitch streamer Ludwig,
Oh yeah.
he went onto the Trash Taste podcast and reported that he only watched half of it and kind of got bored and never finished it.
I saw that. I
was
saw
like,
that.
ooh, there it is. Yeah, there's dozens of you.
Me and Lud holding down the fort, baby. We're the strong minority. Yeah, but I'm gonna give all my reasons, and I'm gonna be very like I'm not. You'll see. I'm not gonna trash it. Like I have very specific reasons, but okay. So what do we give it in terms of scores? Since I'm the one who's been saying my thing, I'll go ahead and start. I gave Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood a confusing 6. So for me, it's a confusing 6, and a 6 is a good show, which had enough positive things to keep me watching, but also had enough negative things that really caused some severe disinterest. Skyler, what did you give it?
Okay, I gave Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood a 10. So for me,
Yeah.
so maxed out. So for me, a 10 is a show that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I would not hesitate to recommend. I have no problems watching it again alone, and I will actually reveal that there is a hidden rubric for me for when I give some shows a 10. So for me, I've written a few stories. They will never be published. They will never see the light of day. But there are certain stories or anime where when I'm reading them, like the writer part of me just like sees how good something is, and it becomes like a reference. Where if I ever want to figure out how to do something, I go to that book or that show or that movie to see how I should write something. And if I ever use something as a reference like that, it kind of automatically goes into at least a 10 or a 9.5 area. And so for me, Fullmetal Alchemist hits that with just how masterfully done the story is, and so it lands an easy 10.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Smoley.
That's cool.
Smoley granola. Yep. Good.
All right, Braydn, what'd you give it?
Okay, yeah, final score. Out of 10, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. Animes that are borderline inspirational experience for me, yet have some minor hiccups that bothered me.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm super curious to pick your brain on how you went from the god of all anime to an 8. Like I really want to
it's in
jump into
technical.
that brain of yours. Oh really? Okay,
yes,
interesting.
Absolutely. It's definitely higher technical than my personal enjoyment.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's start our discussion then. Braydn, I want to start with you.
Yeah.
Like, how did you make the jump from the quintessential to an 8? Like, take us in your mind.
So I've talked about this show on so many other episodes, most notably of which when we did our episode on what was it called? Ranking of Kings, our bonus episode of Ranking of Kings. That show reached towards the notion we have here. I called it a grand conspiracy anime. But in Conspiracy Kings, it seemed hokey and abstract, and there's so many weird little plot holes that didn't seem to mesh. This show, its main story is the king of all sneaking grand conspiracy animes. The plot is thick with at least 2 C's, if not 5. Like,
she thick.
This is the thick booty of conspiracy, and I love it so much. Oh my goodness, because you have wars overlapping each other. You have 2 different magic systems that are both are comprehensible, even though they're completely unique to this world. you have a cast of some 60, 70 odd characters that have individual like personality and purpose. As a storyteller, I can't help but get swept into this nonsense. It's amazing. Now, some of the characters, they're kind of weird. Like, actually, notably, I want to shout into here. Might be surprisingly, as some people have been watching my critiques, but General Oliver Armstrong, the Briggs commander, she's actually one of the weakest characters in the show, believe it or not, for me.
Interesting.
Because although she has this incredibly strong personality, it just seemed like 1.5 dimensional. Like, she has enough to be like a character in the story, but smokes, does she have some weird reasonings for doing things, even if you get that she's like a bullheaded general.
Sure.
Yeah. And there was another one. I literally just finished rewatching the whole show like
20 minutes ago.
Like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so my brain's full of anime right now, but there was another character I want to talk about. I just can't remember at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I can dive into something then. I'm gonna give something I loved about the show, and then I'll give something that I didn't like so much. Let me flip it. I'm gonna say one of the main things that caused me to not enjoy the show. I'm gonna address the biggest point.
Yeah.
And it's thematics. It's just the topical content. Like, for me personally, I don't really enjoy watching like horror, possession, body sacrifice, soul sucking. That thematically, it's not something I enjoy watching. It makes me feel kind of icky. It's not my thing. So it could be the greatest show in the history of the universe, and if that's the theme it's based around, and there's some like really graphic content thrown in, it's just not really something I'm gonna enjoy, like, guarantee.
So
and so that's a big piece of that. That's the point of the show.
Episode 4.
That's literally the whole show.
Episode 4 with the dog wasn't quite your interest matter.
I was like, okay, I want to address episode 4 actually, because it's like, it's supposed to make you sad. It's supposed to make you just feel things. But like, first of all, I knew it was going to happen, like the whole episode. Like, I just kind of called it, and I was like, I was prepared for it. So when it happened and it was supposed to hit me, I was just kind of like, yeah, that's really messed up. And that's it. Like, it didn't really hit me because it was predictable, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
As someone who got, traumatized by that episode when I first saw it, like some 8 years ago, I want to say on this current rewatching, I just didn't realize how like heavily shafted that stinking alchemist was, because there are so many chimeras in this show. There are so many chimeras in the show that can talk and fight and like are characters that are involved in the show, and his people, his alchemists knew about these other chimeras being made and did not tell him, who was supposed to be the chimera alchemist. And he goes and has to do that to his daughter to like prove his worth as part of the community. I'm like, oh god, that's nasty.
Yeah,
just another stinking layer on that poor guy's existence. Ugh.
Yeah. So thematically, that's my biggest thing with the show. So like, right out of the gate, it's just gonna drop a ton. So that's the big thing. That's the main reason. But let me talk about some things I loved. Yeah. And I'm gonna start with Fuhrer King Bradley.
Yeah!
Because
he's so good!
That character, man. And I gotta say, the dub of this show is really, really good. I've actually watched Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, both subbed and dubbed.
Yep.
Both, I think, are actually fantastic. Like, truly. The English voice actor for King Bradley is so good. If you just saw a picture of him and closed your eyes and pictured the perfect voice, you would have the dub English voice actor, because it's perfect. Like, oh man, his character is amazing. all the way throughout the show. His character is awesome, and I feel the exact same way about Colonel freaking Mustang.
Oh, he's one of your top boys, huh?
Oh yeah, I love those two characters. Like those two characters are top of the list.
Because
oh man, I could gush about those two guys.
Stinking Mustang, he's my one of my iffiest characters. He's not like bottom, but he's weird. Like, cause there's sometimes when he has his like big backstory and he acts powerful and he wants to be the Fuhrer and has his aspirations, and other times he's like this goofy little clown dad that is I mean, I don't know, because it even like sometimes works for him, and sometimes it just seems so weird. It just seems like they're trying to make him the comedy, pedestal boy. And it's freaking Mustang, man. He went through the Ishvalan War. He has carved on his hands the remnants of his lieutenant's alchemy, and it is entrusting to her his life in case he has ever shows corruption. Like, this guy is not so serious, and sometimes he's just a clown ball, and it's just weird to see him do that sometimes.
Actually, I want to jump in and I want to say that the balance that they struck with how dark and how serious this anime was, and yet how frequently comedy was kind of sprinkled in, kept it surprisingly fresh.
It did. It did. Generally, we're talking generally.
Generally, yes, because even like you're bagging on Mustang there, which I'm with Brett in this camp.
Okay.
But like most of the other characters, like even Bradley had humorous moments where it was just like, okay, and it was a humorous moment with him.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And so
and that for him, I just thought that made his character like better. This concealment, this like regality of him that added to his motif. I don't know, maybe we just thought too much of Mustang, because there's a lot of this show went on long enough to let some cracks seep through.
So Skyler, I need to I'm sad you brought that up as something you thought was great, because I'm gonna just jump on it. I thought the comedy in this show was actually one of the weakest parts of it. In fact, it got to be so annoying that I was sick of watching some episodes, particularly with Edward. I despised his character by the end of the show, and I could hardly stand to see him on screen, especially when Winry was there, because automatically, without question, I could be sitting there with like a bell in my hand, and I would ding the bell, and then 2 seconds later they would be screaming, and they would be in chibi form, and it would be, oh haha, we're putting comedy. And it was so redundant and so dry and so repetitive and so boring. By the end of the show, I was so frustrated. Like, I was annoyed to crap by the comedy in this show, because it was relentless, and it was the same thing every single time. It really was.
And like that, see, here I am. Okay, now we're jumping, crew. I'm going to tell you right now, we're jumping with topics, because on this topic of the comedy and versus the seriousness, I'm like on the middle camp. Like, it's almost predictable. I could just do the 10-second skip on Crunchyroll and just not even watch some of those parts, because they're just so on hand. But sometimes, often, fair enough to how often they try to jump comedy in, I'd be like, actually, that's kind of funny.
Okay,
it adds value and like levity to the show in a way that wasn't always bad. In fact,
I agree.
I agree. Had good moments. Yeah.
I have a couple characters in mind who I think, when the comedy was there, was awesome. Greed. I think Greed had some great comedic moments. I think Ling Yao had some great comedic moments.
And them together is really good.
And them together with some good comedic moments. Because it was more nuanced. It was a different flavor. Even like some of the homunculus had some dark humor. Like Envy had a little bit of dark humor thrown in. So there were some moments. And like Skyler, you mentioned, like when King Bradley had some of his humorous moments, I was there for it. But the main character and 90% of the humor in the show was just truly obnoxious. And actually, of the people's comments I've read of things they don't like about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, the number one comment that's the most frequent that I found on like my anime list in YouTube is the comedy in the show being obnoxious and repetitive.
Yeah, and I will admit that Edward is honestly just cringy when he tries to be funny.
Yes.
And that's where
they try to make him funny.
Well, like there's
he's always trying to be serious. He's always yelling about I don't know.
Well, even just with like his like fashion tastes and what he thinks is cool is cringy, and I think that
that's a good one to keep
they
coming back
are
to.
self-aware about it, because it's like there's one scene especially that's vividly in my mind where they're in some kind of car chase. And so he changes the car, and it's this ridiculous thing.
Yes,
and everybody
that was good.
But I remember cringing really hard at that one because it was cringy, and everybody's looking at him like, "Are you serious? This is what you went with?" And he's like, "What? I think it's cool." And so I think
and he does that to a sword too. It has like a skull on it and a lot of like thorns and blades and crap. Like
And so for Edward, I honestly think that Edward's humor is just like Chuny humor almost.
Yes.
See, I agree that when Edward was in those moments, I agree that was good humor. I'm saying the humor that was redundant and annoying was the constant yelling, smacking him with a wrench, throwing a milk jug at his head, him running into a door for the, 27th time. Like that kind of stuff. Anyway, so that's my take on the humor, but I agree with you. There were some good comedic moments in there, but that was one of the big problems I had with the show.
Yeah. Oh, smokes. And then there's the other side. There's the deep philosophical side. There's the big questions this nutso anime gets to ask. Like way early on, the brothers are infiltrating Laboratory 5 with the other armored soulbound knight crew.
Which
the butcher,
counter them.
The slasher and whatever the other guy's name is. I can't remember. The one that sticks around. Slasher they end up killing, unfortunately.
Yep.
And the other one dies too, but he gets to do a little bit more with the party. Anyway, so when Al is doing a one-on-one fight by Barry is his name. When he's fighting Barry says, "Are you sure you're even Al? You were made by your brother. How do you know you're not just a construct of whatever he is, of whatever he thinks you are, and not actually the person you were beforehand?" He then goes on to say, the same Barry character goes on to say, who is also a suit of armor with the insignia on it, he says, "I kill, therefore I am." To quote Descartes, "I kill, therefore I am." And I mean, he identifies himself not by whatever he could have been named as before, but by who he feels he is now. And he's challenging Al. How do you know what you are? I'm like, ooh, juicy, tasty, nice little intrigue. Like, I had the same, like, kind of like excitement around like Psychopaths when they're asking a bunch of those ridiculous questions with their setup about like law and stuff. Identity in this one's a big theme. Big theme of identity in this show.
Yeah, and I remember that took a while for Al to resolve, didn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah. It was like the next 2 arcs or so before he's like, you know what? I do have memories before, and that proves to me that I am who I think I am. I remember who I remember myself being. And then much later, he sees his body. He's like, "Oh wait, no, there I am.
I do exist.
I do exist."
And that brings up the story of the show. Like, this is probably one of the greatest stories. Written and told in animated. Skyler, you brought that up. Like, tell us more about that.
So, I think it was Fullmetal Alchemist where I kind of realized that there's more, but there's effectively 2 types of storytelling. There is the episodic, and then there is the grand plan. And so the episodic is where, a conflict arises and is resolved within a setting, usually within a single episode. Whereas grand plans from the very beginning to the very end, the author has to know where the story is going in order to properly connect all of the points. And that is what Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood does. Because if you go and you watch the first episode, there is stuff dropped that you have no clue what they are until much later in the season, or when you go and rewatch it. Like, for example, like Father is in the first episode.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
I didn't realize that till this watch through, but he's right there.
He's right there. And again, as a first-time watcher, you're just like, okay, no clue who that guy was.
Some
But
grumpy
then
guy on
when
the
you...
throne.
Yeah. But when you've seen it and you understand who he is and you're rewatching the first episode, it's like, oh, this is brought up now?
Oh,
Really?
especially because he looks like Hohenheim, Ed and Al's father, when you first see him. And so when you see Hohenheim later, you're like, oh, that's their father, which is being really weird on the throne. He's probably the bad guy. Because he comes in back to their life as this like grumpy guy that doesn't really care about them and left them as kids for unknown reasons. So he is kind of a bad guy.
Yeah.
No, there's another layer, fools. It's father.
Well, and that's kind of the layer that I'm talking about, where you can't just do that and throw it in later and have it land to the same effect. There are people who do and have had it work, but it's much more rare to do it that way and have it actually work out. Mm-hmm. And so even in terms of like power systems, this is one that I point to for hard magic systems. Because there is a bit of hand wavy with how alchemy works, but still, like, every time the theme plays, it's like it explains what the law of equivalent exchange is, and that is the foundation of the entire story.
Yep.
Is that in order to gain something of equivalent value must be lost, and there is one exception to that rule, and that one exception is what the entire plot revolves around.
Okay. What's the exception? I don't know.
The
You're
Philosopher's
thinking on
Stone.
the meta here, but I don't
The
understand what you're
Philosopher's
saying.
Stone.
The Philosopher's Stone. That's not equivalent. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because essentially what that does is it allows them to do things without giving up something of equivalent exchange.
You know,
But
that's
then,
actually a
but-
very
well,
good point.
The equivalent exchange that was given was the sacrifice of the person.
and that's the
soul of the
discussion that
person.
comes up. That's the
But-
discussion that comes up.
But actually, every other instance of alchemy in this show transforms a thing into the same thing, but in a different form. Like alchemy, like in art, as far as I know, is like the pursuit to turning stuff into gold. Like you're
That
turning
was one of its applications.
one substance into another substance. But in this show, it's transforming things as per your study or whim or whatnot. So that's actually a good point, because the Philosopher's Stone doesn't do that. It transforms a human soul into other things. Whereas they'll literally just tell you the chemical makeup of whatever they're attacking at the moment. And like there's one instance in the North Arc where they're like, oh, what's in dynamite? Oh, they're sticking like there's some like toxic gas that's latent in dynamite that Edward
it's
like
ammonia?
explodes. Yeah, ammonium. He explodes ammonium and the Chimeras can't stand it because their senses are too strong. Like they'll talk about literally what they're doing with the chemical makeup of a thing, but with the Philosopher's Stone, that's where they're taking a thing and making it something else. So that's a good point. That's a good point.
Correct. And again, that's again why the story works so well, is because it's the one exception. And they bring this up with Al, where it's like, in order for Ed to do maintenance on Al, he does alchemy on the armor, and he essentially takes the material that's already there and then stretches it out. And so he'll say stuff like, oh, hey, I don't have enough material to move your armor without thinning it out too much. And so I have to go get more material so that I have enough material to do the alchemy correctly without causing all these other issues. But again, the Philosopher's Stone ignores that entirely.
Yeah. Yep.
I wouldn't say that it ignores it. It's that the exchange was, again, the exchange was the human soul provided for the stone, and that sacrifice is the exchange.
Correct. And again, that is kind of the debate that is brought up by Full Metal.
Right.
But that's also why it's like that is the drive, because that is how both Ed and Al will get their bodies back. And when they finally figure out what the main ingredient for the Philosopher's Stone is, that's why they're just like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? All this time we've been chasing, it's been right there. And now that we know what the ingredient is, we cannot pursue it.
Yeah. Because, even when the Elric brothers ditched the Philosopher's Stone, the rest of the world, anybody that's seeking for power or big change, is still looking for that thing.
Exactly.
They eventually evolved to needing their original desires, which is getting Al's body back and Edward getting his body back, his limbs back. But they put such beautiful emphasis on this material, this mythical thing, this pursuit, this power, and makes it pretty transparent. I don't know. It makes for a very good lead for any strong character to enter the fray, and there are a lot of characters in this sticking fray.
Well, and for me, that's why the story works so well, is because, again, we're speaking generally, they were pretty laser focused on that premise the entire time.
Even the final fight where Father is Kamehamehaing the stars or whatever he's doing. He when he's losing, he seeks to eat or devour greed for his Philosopher's Stone, the power of the stone within his homunculus greed. So even at the end pinnacle, he's still reaching for that power, and Edward just beats the crap out of him to finish it off. Also, Greed does a really cool thing where he does some cool, weird magic that I did not think was the thing. I forgot it was, where he inverts his power. He turns the indestructible shield into the most weak carbon when he inhabits the Father's body. And so then Edward can finally punch him and it'll crumble him. Like that. Inversing your own homunculus ability, what does that mean for gluttony clear back when? Could he have used his body as a cannon or his gate as a cannon? Maybe. He was pretty dumb, so he never would have figured that out, but maybe.
Well, and that's
the story also the storytelling, like you're saying, Skyler, just the little bits that's just enough to consume through this big grand plan all the way to this like deity level thing. It's pretty incredible. Really incredible. With that being the case, there were a couple things with the story that did kind of give me hiccups a little bit, because really, like you say, I do think this is a masterclass of story. Anything you find is almost nitpicking, because it's just that good. But there's a couple things that just really made me okay. And first off, and I don't know how it would be improved, but especially near the very, very, very end, bringing together all the pieces was a little hard.
Yep.
And I've talked to a lot of people who say that the last few episodes, they're like, wait, what was that? What happened? They have to go look up an explanation, or they're asking questions. They're like, what did that mean? What was the truth after all? The white thing? I was watching the show with my wife, and there were many instances where we kind of had to pause, and she'd be like, wait, is that the homunculus, or is that their dad? Wait, what just happened here? And so I do think the show suffered a little bit from trying to explain things, especially at the end. It got a little wiry. But again,
wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Still great, but I do think they could have explained things a little bit better, because it did get pretty, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey at the end.
Especially after all the setup that they do, explaining the world and explaining the big bad's plan and the counter plan, by the time you get to fighting with specifically Father himself, you know what's about to happen. Like, you know the front end of it. There's nothing really surprised there. You have to see all these little tail ends gets up, which is why Wrath, going back to your earlier comment, Brett, Wrath or King Bradley, he's one of my favorite characters in this entire show.
Okay. I want to interject really quickly where you said that.
Yeah, do it.
And just to make sure that I understand correctly, is it a bad thing that you knew it was about to happen or a good thing that you knew it was about to happen?
It's neutral, because the purpose of this was the setup. Like, when I talk about grand conspiracy, no conspiracists want to see their thing realized. They don't want the betrayal to be over. The whole arc of learning what Philosopher's Stone is, to learning what the wars and why those happened were, to why every major bloodbath incident happened the last so many hundred years, to why there's tunnels being dug in all of Amestria, to how to counteract that with this other land's magic and his and Scar's brother's knowledge. Like, that, it's just all of that is Full Metal Alchemist. That is the juice. The resolution is just a resolution. It just lets it go. It casts it off, and it's fine.
So I want to comment on that by referencing two movies that are highly successful and kind of go into the reason why I think they worked. Number one is Inception.
Why are we referencing these movies?
I'm about to explain it. Number one is Inception, and the other one is the new Top Gun Maverick movie. The reason I'm referencing these two movies is because in both movies, the entire movie is essentially explaining what they are going to do the entire movie, and then the end of the movie is them doing the thing.
Okay.
I could not disagree about Inception more. I'm with you with Top Gun. I completely disagree with Inception. Careful how deep we go on this.
Sure. Yeah. But with Inception, like, you're literally seeing their blueprints for the different layers that they're going into as you're watching the movie, that are explaining how they want to do things as they go through the movie. And how they say, hey, this is why you need to do this. We need to have this shortcut here because these things exist.
Okay.
And then in both Top Gun and Inception, the plan goes wrong. And because you know essentially what's supposed to happen, when it goes wrong, it adds kind of like that sense of dread of like, oh no, that's bad.
Okay.
And it heightens essentially the experience, in my opinion. So for Top Gun, they get shot down, or he does. And then he comes back to save Maverick, and then he also goes down. They have to figure out a way out of that situation. In Inception, it's, he's been trained to resist these types of incursions, and one of our guys just got shot, and so now this whole plan that we have, gone. Doesn't exist anymore.
And then in Fullmetal Alchemist...
And so in Fullmetal Alchemist, again, like you said, there's all this setup. There's all this stuff done to set up the finale. And so then as things happen, that's where it does kind of get a little bad. And I think that what it does suffer from, to agree with you, is that they tried to wrap it up too quickly. And so in order to keep up the pacing, they had to sacrifice some of the explanations. And so instead of it landing as like this, how do I phrase this? It allows a lot more confusion to kind of come in than what there should have been. But I think that it actually still did land very, very, very well because of that.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you by agreeing with you. Hold up one second. I got my brain together. You just twisted my brain hole. So the reason I think the ending didn't land so well is because, like, there was no, like, twist peril. Like, the good guys' plan to line up the alkahestry counter circle worked. It was fine. There were some hiccups fighting Wrath and Envy and hiccups fighting Pride, there and again, but, like, nothing combating the big plan was ever thwarted. The big plans thing went off. The good guys' plan, counter plan, went off. And then they beat each other to death. So one of them died. There it is. There wasn't the peril. Like I was saying, I don't think the ending was as impactful because they didn't have a unexpected peril against the big plan.
Yeah,
there were some really good. Sorry, go ahead. I want you to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The only sacrifice was someone who we knew would sacrifice himself, which was the father. Not the father Alzen, Ed's actual dad. Like,
Oh, for
Hohenheim.
Hohenheim.
literally everyone else was fine. Like Colonel Mustang got his vision back, and Al got his body back, and everyone came to life, and
Yeah, I think
everything was fine.
because I
Like,
think the
everything was
only person that like died in the final, like even the whole like final big thing, besides like the leaders of Amestria that got corrupt or whoever got eaten by the zombies or whatever, was Fu, Grandpa Fu or Old Man Fu, who was Ling's like caretaker and the grandpa of Yin Fang or whatever her name is. He did die in his fight against Wrath, and General or Colonel Buccaneer, or whatever his name, Mr. Buccaneer, uses Fu's dying to run a sword through Fu and then through Wrath to land an actual mortal blow on Wrath for once in that entire fight. So it's like this huge, cool thing. But again, that was like a side thing against Wrath, in my vision at least. It wasn't so much the peril. And then the peril, I mean, which did go through, which again, I had this thing about people not killing the chicken in a reference to my experience with Rise of the Shield Hero. They kill a lot of chickens in the show. It's there is peril. They bring it up all over the place, even though it doesn't really happen to our main guys people too often. Actually, that's not true, because even in the North Arc, there was a spot where Stinking Ed is skewered through with a beam of steel from a building that collapsed on him, and he's by himself and can't heal that. And so there's like 2 episodes where we're trying to figure out how that was going to resolve, and that was some peril. Actually, I'll take it back. There was some peril there. It was nice.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
That brings up two other things I've got to bring up about the story.
Hit it.
I have to bring them up
I need
before
to
we
drink some
keep going
water.
down this road
I've
too
been
far.
talking too much.
So,
Take it, Brett.
okay, speaking of the part where Ed gets skewered, Father is this super, super old, centuries old genius who has this master plan. Why did he just not keep the 5 people he needed chained up in the basement and keep them safe? Because what if Ed died? What if something bad happened to Ed? Oh, his whole plan is screwed up. Well, guess I can't do it. Why didn't he just keep him in the basement? Like, his whole plan hinged on hoping nothing happened to one of them the whole time while they have these really dangerous jobs. And then this brings up the thing that is the most egregious for me in the whole story. But Skyler, go ahead.
I'm trying to remember. What did Mustang do to lose his vision?
Oh,
Okay,
so
this is my biggest problem with the whole show is right here. Okay, look.
take it, Brett.
This is what bugged me the most about the whole show, because the whole show is very tight. Like Skyler said, hard magic system, tight. Rules, tight. Like, this show is so good. So why in the world did it do what it did with Colonel Mustang, where they pinned him down and forced him to commit human transmutation? That just broke so many rules. Like, oh no, like, they could have just done that to anyone. They
Yes.
tried to justify it by Colonel Mustang by saying, oh, he's very talented. Do you know how many talented people you showed in this show? They just said, oh, you're really talented. Swords, now you're going to commit human transmutation. Here you go. We need this to happen for the plot. I was actually angry at that point because, like, I was really getting into the show at that point. And then I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that really sucks.
'Cause
that is lame.
I don't have a problem with that thing. They don't explain it. And this is what I'll grant you, Brett, is they don't explain it. And
Yes, my
there
point.
are 2 other radically interesting things that are done in this show that aren't explained. But I think that adds the magic. Like, yes, there's this hard system, but there's things we still don't understand that exist in this world. Here are the 2 things. First, at the end of the show, Scar is able to use alchemy just like the Elric brothers are able to, but he never passes through the portal. All he needed to do was accept his reconstruction arm, which he'd been not using the whole show, and then he can just make pillars and generate things out of other things like anybody else, but he never passed through the portal like they did. kind of leads towards the weight of whatever his brother figured out with the history and alchemy magics.
Right. And for that one, you could also say that just the tattoo on his arm is what allowed him to do that. Because for Mustang, like, he had the tattoo on his hand, and so when he was in the fight with Lust, like, that's what he was using, that tattoo, as the transmutation circle to attack Lust.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so...
No, I get the whole tattoo thing, but he's doing portal magic without going through the portal. Because of the level of power of these tattoos. I'm like, that is unexplained and interesting. But it
is explained. Like, it has an explanation. The Colonel Mustang thing for me is the whole plot hinges around Father having these 5 people, and all they need is to force Colonel Mustang to do human transmutation, and now he's eligible to be that 5th person. They could have done that with anyone. They didn't explain why. It was just a massive hole in the logic of the show.
Nope. There's the thing there. They did give us a thing, Brett. They didn't give us a full thing, but they did give us a thing.
Okay.
The thing they gave is that it severely hurts or impairs the homunculi to do that. That's what they've given us.
Well,
so
that
they could have done that at any time to any person that wasn't Colonel Mustang.
While that's true, I have a headcanon, which automatically means that it's bad writing on this section, and so I will acknowledge that. But essentially, the headcanon is essentially where it's like, okay, they can't just use any average old Joe because they need powerful alchemists. Something about being strong alchemists lends itself to the circle, but again, because that was never explained, because there is no reference to that, it is bad writing, and who knows if it's actually true.
So they actually hint to it in the manga. They hint that they need a powerful alchemist, but literally the whole show is them showing off powerful alchemists. Like that. So to me, like, when I think about things I really just don't like about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, I've got everything recapped that I've talked about, because I'm willing to talk about more stuff I love, because there's so much good stuff about the show. But the things recapped it's just not my thematic material that I enjoy. The humor was obnoxious. The whole plot hole with Colonel Mustang and forcing him to do human transmutation for me was like way beneath this show. This show's better than that. And it shot itself in the foot like an old Western movie comedy. It just shot itself in the foot, and I was actually angry. And then what was the 4th thing I mentioned? Because those are like the 3 main things. I think that's it. So like, those are my nitpicky things, because honestly, there's not a lot to pick on this show for. It's incredible. What are some other great things about this show?
Well, still though, those nitpicks took you all the way down to a 6.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the thematic content really took me down to like a 7, and or like a 7.5, and then those other 2 or 3 things brought me down to a 6.
Mm-hmm. What we're trying to validate here for you, Brett, is that those are not just nitpicky things. They are major significant things of discussion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. I feel like I have to defend myself, because literally every person on the planet like loves this show, and like I can already tell people are like, Brett's crazy.
Like, there's a reason I'm able to watch this show while quote unquote this show while I'm doing other things, is I can just like skip 10 seconds because I can expect the dialogue of what's going to happen so many times. Like, especially that I've seen it a couple times, I know when they're not talking about anything interesting. They're just like moving a point like yay much with 5 minutes of talking.
Okay, yeah, fair.
There's a minute of that here too, and you're talking about like that particular hitch. Those kind of holes were all over the North for me. Between like reeling a tank in out of nowhere, between like the limitations of sloth not even like being breached or talked about, or I don't know, the whole North arc. I've downloaded too much anime, cannot like recompute my issues. I just have a note here that says the North arc bugged me immensely. Like time and time again, it got into me.
Interesting.
Yep. So I'd say no, absolutely. There's Yes, there's definitely some stuff here.
Mace Hughes, best guy. Rest in peace.
Oh, Mace Hughes.
I actually wanted to bring him up real quick, where it's like, when you think about the amount of core characters who died, there's not that many, and this was mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the reason that that was able to work is because of how early Maze died.
Absolutely.
Because
they killed the chicken. He was the chicken crew. He was it.
And this should give other... Sorry, Skyler, I'll let you talk. This should give other authors courage to go through with killing the characters, because it can be impactful and powerful and give motivation to other characters. We just did Naruto Shippuden, and where one of the senseis dies gives a whole drive for a whole new show to a whole cast of characters. Like, it's a powerful thing. Stop just bringing people back to life.
Yeah, and to even go into the hero's journey, that is a normal part and an almost critical part of the hero's journey, is losing the mentor.
Yeah.
And so Maze kind of filled that role. But the one thing I would caution against is killing off too many characters, because that's one of the reasons why I could not connect with 2 Year Eternities, because I never formed a bond with anyone where it was like, oh,
okay, but
you're just going to die.
Attack on
just
Titan.
Just throwing it out. That too. Well, and
I
also
love
the...
Attack on Titan, and it massacres people left and right. It's
Well, and
nasty.
also the Game of Thrones. People die everywhere. You can do it, but the thing that I'm throwing out is you have to be careful with the kind of story you want to tell, because it will affect it. Because like I said, if I just had the expectation that characters are just going to be dying everywhere, then my investment into any character is going to drop off a cliff, because I just have this expectation that they're going to die.
My biggest problem is the flip side, which I'm going to reference Naruto Shippuden again. Same story, following story arc, where you just learn that for the rest of the 400 episodes that you're about to watch, no one's going to die. And you're pretty much right the whole time, with an exception of like one person. And then everyone else who's like on the brink of death, you're just like, you're not even worried. It's just like, nothing's going to happen. They're going to be fine. And then they're fine. And you're like, yeah, I was right. And it's lame.
And that is the balance that is really difficult to make, which is where if you go too far in one direction, you don't care about anyone because they're all going to die. Yeah. Too far on the other extreme, there is no peril, like you just mentioned, because no one's going to die.
Oh, Skyler, you just reminded me. One of the other things in the North arc, Braydn, both of you reminded me. This is one of the other things that got me about the story. When they get Envy to be in the little worm state.
Yeah.
And they just stupidly and inexplicably like, no, let's just keep him in this jar. I'm sure it's going to be fine. And it's like, okay, come on. Like, you can't be that dumb. Like,
I mean,
really? And then they're like, and they don't even really explain why they want to keep him around.
No, they did. They gave him a purpose. They gave him a little pact in life. It's not great. They gave him to, what's her butt? Little child. Yep. What's her name? Mei Chang.
Yes.
To prove like Philosopher's Stone isms so that she can save her plan. That's the whole thing.
I know that's the whole bit, but like...
Okay, but Brett, here's my question. What is that thing? In a completely normal world of dogs and lions and gorillas, what is that thing? Where did that come from?
It reminds me of a Yerk from Animorphs.
Yeah, right?
That's an old series that I haven't heard of in a while.
Throwback.
Buddy.
But for me, actually, so again, headcanon, so poor writing. But then again, this is also kind of where it gets into the philosophical side, so it might get a pass on this. But Envy is obviously themed after one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that the worm is like a symbol, essentially, of like someone who is like envious. Whereas like they're as if they are a worm.
Okay.
Oh, it's completely religiously it's completely religiously symbolic.
And
like this show is full of biblical symbolism.
They also say that in the movie. They say that in the TV show. Like those are the words. Like, you are a worm. That's why you feel envy of humans, because you are ugly and disgusting and little and pathetic.
Yes. So
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
if they quote it, then it's not headcanon.
Yeah,
No,
in the
it's not.
Bible, it's God thrusting out Lucifer and saying that, from this day forward, you shall crawl on thy belly, and the heel of man shall, you may be able to bruise the heel of man, but he shall crush your head.
Yep.
And you shall always want a body, but never have. Like, yeah,
Okay,
totally.
But like, of the two strange creatures in the show, the dwarf in the jar, who is eventually the father character, who is made by alchemists, sure, that's mysterious. They say something. What is the leech thing? Who made him? Where did he come from? Is he a mutated thing? Is he a chimera? I don't know. There's nothing. There's zero backstory as to what envy is. They just have this ugly thing that is envy of human, which fits the symbology well, but it's a little, where'd it go? Where'd the guy go?
There is backstory, but yes, they don't go that far into it because essentially it has to do with greed, where it has the whole part where he's captured by wrath and brought back to father.
Wait.
And then there's that whole...
Oh, greed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's the whole dialogue about like, hey, I split you off from myself, and I am now taking you back into myself.
Okay.
And so it's essentially just by the way that whole process happens, you can extrapolate to say that that's what all of the other homunculi are. That they were once a part of Father, but he split them off from himself.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's where he comes from.
Okay, but why is it
That
a
whole...
leech?
it's
You're not asking why it's a leech. Because pride very, very notably is a fetus. That's what he is. Like, Pride is a tiny little baby thing that they took and infused with the Philosopher's Stone. It survived and became Pride, the child of the kings. But like... And then everybody else is like some kind of humanoid form. Envy takes a form, but where did the base of envy come from? That's it. It's not answered. That's it.
It's symbolic.
Great.
Why is the door red?
What did you guys think of the war arc? Like, with the backstory of the war with Scar and his brother and
So blasted. Like, interesting, dude. It's so deeply interesting.
yeah.
Because first it's
Kimley.
just... Yeah, Kimley. Lieutenant Hawkeye, even.
Yeah.
Oh, Hawkeye, by the way, is
I ship them so hard. Mustang and Hawkeye. Oh man, I was disappointed with the romance conclusion in this show. I needed more. They were such a good couple. I needed more.
I was looking at the Winry Ed romance at the end. I'm like, Brent would hate this much.
I hated it so much.
They're making alchemy jokes at each other, and that's the romance. Get out of here with that crap. You don't want that. Just show them having kids or something. That's all we need.
It shows the
After
final
credits
photo.
pictures. The picture. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, it shows the photo after the credits. So, yeah, I get that. I don't know. I actually kind of give them points for not continuing. Because on one hand, yeah, I would have loved to have seen the romance. But I almost feel like that should be like its own split off type thing because it feels like...
Sure.
But the reason is like one of the things that I give props to Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood for is that, again, they focused on the story, they did what they needed to do, and then they were done. They didn't try and drag it out. They didn't do any of that. They told their story and they were done.
Yeah.
Well, there was a movie.
There was a movie. There was
movies.
Animated. Okay, we're being specific. Animated movie. There's also 2 live action movies.
No.
Those don't do anything new.
No.
They're just live action anime. You don't worry about those.
So for the movies, though, there was we haven't mentioned it this entire time, but there was also an entirely other Fullmetal Alchemist animated show.
Oh yeah! How could we forget? Because it's terrible.
So, and
I haven't seen it.
I'm trying to remember which one it is, but I've seen most of the show, and I know, like, I read the last part of it essentially, and the movie Is the movie a part of the Fullmetal Alchemist or the Brotherhood one?
Brotherhood.
It is part of the Brotherhood? Okay, then I haven't seen that one. Because I think there's a couple animated movies for just the Fullmetal Alchemist series.
Yes, there is. There's one that happens. Okay. So there's one that happens in the middle, and they like go to this land that has a transmutation sphere in the middle and a philosopher's stone, and they meet these like flying police.
Yeah, basically.
And then there's the
Great.
And then okay, I'm just trying to remind myself here because I did look it all up before this. Okay, so there's Fullmetal Alchemist, the movie Conqueror of Shambhala. There's Fullmetal Alchemist, the Sacred Star of Milos.
That's the 3D transmutation one.
Yes. So I believe Conqueror of Shambhala. Anyway, we're not doing the movies, so we don't have to go too far into it. But those are the two animated movies.
Right. The live action was brought up. Don't waste your time.
No, there's no need to.
It is impressive how bad they are.
They try to squeeze a lot into a stupid movie, so like...
They also change how the plot flows and when things happen and why they happen.
Because they tried to do the impossible with a bad media format for anime. You don't do that.
They did the opposite of where they tried to cram way too much and way too little, just like the last, the last Airbender Avatar movie. Let's take this whole thing.
That had way more other problems. The fact it existed the way it did, like, oh man.
So does the Fullmetal Alchemist live action movies. It has its share of problems. It's like, what? That's no.
Yeah.
Anyways, one thing I will actually recommend though is that
crap, we're an hour into this episode. Oh boy, howdy, people, buckle up. Let's go.
It's a big show. It's a big show.
It's a big show, and this is the finale.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
For people who want to watch Fullmetal Alchemist, I actually recommend that you watch the first few episodes of the original series.
I've heard that.
Interesting.
Because
from a lot of people.
Because there are actually a few arcs that happens in the original anime that don't exist in Brotherhood, and those characters do come back in Brotherhood. So, for example,
I heard that the Fullmetal Alchemist period, that one ends very poorly. Is the shtick.
Oh, it ends horribly.
Okay.
So, like, essentially, like some of the homunculus switch sides where they're now helping Ed to do his stuff. It's weird. It's bad.
It also it also detracts from the original content, right? From the manga.
Yes, it does not follow the canon.
So up to a point, actually. So what happened is that okay, so a bit of background. So this is kind of an early fun fact, I guess. The manga came out, and then the anime was started for Fullmetal Alchemist. However, they outran the manga. But instead
they pulled the Game of Thrones.
They pulled the Game of Thrones, which is where they just kept on going, and then they did their own thing.
Oh, wait. Did Game of Thrones pull Fullmetal Alchemist?
Dun, dun, dun.
So, yeah, and that's essentially what happened. And so they just ran off and did their own thing, completely independent of the manga. And you can see where they started to go off the rails if you watch the original series. And it is kind of interesting and weird. And so Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, they went back and they followed the manga pretty much faithfully. But like I said, they actually had to cut some stuff out. And so if you go and you rewatch or just watch the first, 6 or so episodes of the original series, you'll get some background for some characters that just show up in Brotherhood unexplained. One example is like the guy towards the end where he has like the long mustache.
Mm-hmm.
He has a whole arc in the beginning where he was like the owner of this mining town, which is where that what's her name, the little carrying Envy.
The guy is Giulio Gamanci, right? Comanche, Giulio.
I think so. Yes. So yeah, his backstory is in the original series, but that episode isn't in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And so essentially they remove him from power and free this mining town. And that mining town is what this little girl is wandering through when they offer her help and causes her to turn around and go back. So that whole thing, that whole little side thing, completely unexplained in Brotherhood, but it's there in the original series. And there's a few things like that.
Yeah, I've seen Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood 3-4 times now. I gotta go just watch the other content and fill in some gaps because I've heard the same story time and time again. I just gotta go do it.
Yeah, and even then, if you just watch like the first, like I said, probably the first 6,
Okay.
and you'll be fine to stop.
Okay.
If you want to keep going, go at your own risk.
There be danger here.
All right, well let's do some quick points, and so we can get to this, get through this season finale.
Yeah.
What do you guys got for quick points here?
I have so many, so leave me for last.
Okay. Skyler, do you want to go or me?
I'll try to hash it out real quick. Not perfect, still masterfully done, still an experience that I go back and I use as reference for stories and concepts that I'm working on. Extraordinary characters, gritty, and yet still palatable for me.
Love it. Yeah, I'll throw out some. I really liked Mei Chang and Ling Yao. I really liked Ling Yao a lot. He was actually one of my favorite characters. Seeing the homunculus like really be stars of the show was also really, really interesting. Like Salim Bradley and the King, that was really fascinating. I got a little sick of them refusing to kill bat people that deserve to die. Particularly like Ed and Al.
Yep, I knew that would come up.
I get it, but like Kim Lee just deserved to die. Like, don't stop Scar. Don't stop it. He deserves to die. Like, there's no question. Stop trying to save people. Another thing that bugged me about Ed and Al is their alchemy was the same thing the whole show, and the whole show kept telling you constantly, alchemy allows you to do the most incredible things.
Right?
And every single time it was a hand, a wall, some pillars, and that was it. That's all they did the whole show.
One knife.
One knife. Ed was supposed to be so smart and creative, and it's like, yeah, they outthought their enemies sometimes, but all they could come up with was, oh man, let's make another hand out of rock. Like, come on, like, get creative. Don't do the same thing every time. There was one exception, and it was when Al was using the Philosopher's Stone to fight two of the homunculus while one of them was trapped in the black ball.
Pride.
That was sick. I was happier, and I'm like, maybe they just don't have enough power to do anything other than some pillars in a hand, but like, it was never explained. So the use of alchemy by Ed and Al really frustrated me by the end of the show.
Really
like,
quick.
Come on, be creative. I remember I was watching with Bridget, and I was like, I was really frustrated, and she's like, what's wrong? And I was like, okay, look, I'm going to say 12 things that they could have done here with their alchemy. They could have made a sinkhole. They could have made a gel cell. They could have done this. They could have done that. They could have done this. But what did they do? They made another wall that got broken down. Surprise, surprise. They did one of their 3 things that they can do in this show with the all-powerful alchemy. Like, I was very fed up with their repetitive use of those 3 objects. Best couple? Izumi and Sig. Man. That was such a good part of the show. Izumi was the teacher of Ed and Al at the beginning. She tried to bring her kid back to life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Also bugged me a little bit that she didn't like really emphasize with Ed and Al, hey, you shouldn't do human transmutation because guess what? I did it and it's a bad idea. Like, I don't know. Maybe the whole show would have never happened if she did that.
Did they find her after they had done it, though?
No, because they're both small children when they find
They're
her.
both small children. Yep.
And not a suit of armor and a half limb.
Yeah, they're small kids.
That's right,
they were trained by her because they couldn't have done it without her. She's the one that taught them alchemy. So
that's right.
Maybe if she was a better teacher, she would have been like, I don't know, don't do like the biggest thing you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Maybe. So that there's that. Second best couple, Alex Armstrong and Sig Curtis. Sig Curtis is in both best couples.
Yeah.
Their bro fight at the end to take down Sloth. So good. The fight scenes, particularly the fight scenes involving King Bradley, freaking sick. Also the fight scenes involving Mustang when he's freaking going to town on Envy. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Gluttony's character was also super interesting. I found. I really didn't like the episodes when they were inside Gluttony. I thought they were just, again, really convenient and weird. But I think Gluttony was interesting, especially where Al was like deceiving him and like kind of walking him around like a big baby. And then I think that's it for my quick points. Like some likes, some dislikes, but yeah, so much to really like about this show. Like, I wish we could go into it more, but it's been an hour. All right, Braydn, hit us with your quick points.
Okay, let's let her rip. Does anybody else get ridiculously happy when the narrator says Fullmetal Alchemist? Because every episode made me smile. I like how Ed kept referring to the Chimera folk by Mr. Gorilla and Mr. Lion because he couldn't remember their names. Because I relate to that really hard. Episode 47, they're going, like, the promised day is there. And Ed changes from his white cloak he'd wore when he'd forsaken his alchemist title for his classic red cloak because he said, "This might be the last battle I ever get to fight. I want to do it in style." I'm like, yeah, buddy, get him.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Next, call me a grade schooler. Yet I got to giggle every time they call Hohenheim Mr. Ho because they did it a lot.
I forgot about that too.
Let's see what else we got here. It was interesting to me how most connections to chimeras ended up on the Elric's brothers' side and not fueling the opponent's side, even when they used them. Let's see. The Chimera Alchemist was being withheld information from his country. I already mentioned that, so they'd ostracized this Chimera guy. Greed's chimeras fought against Wrath when they were first introduced way early on, before Greed's first death. Kimbley's 4 Chimera troops all ended up turning to the Elric brothers' side, and even Greed himself used to make chimeras also turn to Elric's side, and that's interesting little. I don't know if there's like a note there that spills over from Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance, and whatever the first game is, where they have a lot of the humans teaming up with the beast folk, but that was interesting to me. We did the North Arc. Ed's Nightmares. Ed's Nightmares gives a great insight on his inner turmoil towards what happened to him and his brother, and the guilt he feels for that. So when Al's really torn up about is he real? Was he just made by his brother to like help be a therapy doll or something? Ed's already going through the same torment on his end, which when they those two things clash together, it just makes for a very tender moment between them. Episode 15, like I said, we're going backwards. I noticed that the Silver Alchemist, who's in like 5 minutes of show, reminds me a lot of Mad Piero from Cowboy Bebop, the mad clown guy from that random episode.
Oh, dang, you're right.
The silver guy is also
Giolo
on a ball.
Comanche.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's floating around and he's shooting weird stuff, and he's sane, but he really reminds me of the Mad Piero. All right, we're almost through, crew. There's something about whatever the mentor girl name. You brought it up already.
Izumi!
Yeah. When she tells Al that you don't have to be strong, and Al's like hulking armor body starts to cry, that just, it can't be the Phillies. It's really soft. Talk about excellent sword play. The sword fight against the slasher in Lab 5 was amazing. His huge greatsword fighting techniques reminded me of like Dark Souls and Elden Ring and those really colossal fights. which
Yeah.
kind of speaks to how good their swordplay is in this anime. And then the best for absolute last, it is a shame, crew, that we did not record this episode on October 3rd.
Oh, yeah.
Because we really could have tied it together, yet hopefully us being 3 out of 10 anime October 3rd can make up for it. And I'll end on that.
We are recording this episode on the 3rd first of October, Halloween.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it's the next best thing.
We're 3 out of 10 anime. That's why can be such a pinnacle season ender for us. And that is all.
That's great.
Nice.
That's really good. And I'm going to lean into handing off the baton to Skyler by saying I gave it a 6. Skyler gave it a 10. Braydn gave it an 8. My anime list gave it a 9.1. IMDb gave it a 9.1. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 100. And Google users gave it a 94%. So this is easily a 9.5 average show for the communities. So that's how we stack up to everybody else. What do you think of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood? Leave your comments. Do you agree with any of the things that we dislike about it? Or do you think it is a perfect masterpiece? If so, we respect your opinion either way. Let us know in the comments. Skyler, take us away with some fun facts.
All right. So, kind of mentioned some of these earlier on, but I'll still rehash them. So, this was based off of a manga by Hiromu Arakawa. The manga sold 80 million volumes, which makes it one of the best-selling manga series. It has won several awards. The manga has the 49th Shogakukan Manga Award, UK's Eagle Award in 2010 and 2011, and the Seiyun Award for Best Science Fiction Comic in 2011. It was made into 2 anime series, which we mentioned.
Which, by the way, crazy, they got the funding for Brotherhood. Can we think about that? Like, you botch the first series and then you get greenlit for a second one? Like, that must have been a miracle.
Oh, the manga alone was popular enough that probably greatly influenced it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's had many movies, both live action and animated, light novels, games, all sorts of stuff. So now some my anime list things. So for the original Fullmetal Alchemist, its rank is number 431, so down there. And its popularity is at 74, which is kind of surprising for me.
Interesting.
So that means, because just so everyone knows, as time of this recording, Kaguya-sama Love is War Grand Romance
Ultra romantic.
just took the second highest spot in all of my anime list. Like, it is the second highest rated show
Jeez.
of all anime.
Yep.
And
Now,
Fullmetal Alchemist is what place?
Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Fullmetal Brotherhood?
Yeah, so the one that I gave was the original Fullmetal Alchemist.
Oh, yeah. Because I was going to say, is it Brotherhood first?
Brotherhood is ranked number 1 in my anime list.
There it is.
And in popularity is ranked number 3.
Yes! Holy smokes, yes. That's amazing.
For Kaguya-sama, and I guess for you Kaguya-sama people who are waiting, there's a movie that's going to be coming out soon, and the manga is ending.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So now a couple more facts before we go into the next section. Military officers are named after military vehicles.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, and if you go through some of the other officers and you look up their name, you'll find which vehicle they were effectively named after. Braydn, where you mentioned,
Hawkeye?
I think it's a helicopter.
Oh, okay.
Because I recognize all the tank names. What about Ross? Murray Ross? Yoki?
Havoc.
All the
Yeah.
guys are named after tanks and land vehicles.
But that's still an interesting note. That's cool.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
I knew there was something going on with those names there. I just couldn't figure it out. So that's cool.
So, Braydn, where you mentioned how you liked the narrator intermission commercial breaks.
Yeah.
Dead characters don't get those.
I was wondering about that. That's insane.
Okay.
Are you serious? Oh, that's cool. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Because
So
sometimes,
here-
they just float over it with like the last scene's music, and then the next one has it. I'm like, oh, that's okay,
why.
that's cool. I have to go watch the whole thing again. Just check.
Okay, so Hiromu actually interviewed World War II veterans for a lot of the stuff, which is why a lot of them have PTSD. That's why she was able to go into detail on some of the way that they acted and did things, and even like with the way that the war was portrayed, was because she interviewed World War II veterans.
Wow, that's really cool.
That's really cool.
Okay, and then the last one, Hiromu, she was born and raised on a dairy farm.
Oh, how do you do? Isn't that
So like all of the references that they kept on making for Ed, and make sure you drink your milk, okay? You better make sure you have your milk.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
that's funny.
Yeah, cool.
So, if you go to Fullmetal Alchemist Reddit, and it says, "Are there any reasons behind the namings of the characters besides the homunculus?" And the number one comment is, "Scar has a scar on his face."
yeah, good job, Brandon. You did it.
And then the
Horror.
next one is the American soldiers are named after real life military vehicles.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, I'll give you guys actually a bonus fun fact about myself and Fullmetal Alchemist.
Oh, hit.
Do it.
This show was when I made the transition from dubbed to subbed.
Oh, really?
Because at the time
Interesting.
that I watched it, they hadn't finished the dub. So I ran out of the dub and there was only the subbed.
Oh, cool.
And when I switched, that's when I started realizing, wait a second.
Yes, because I mean, we're gonna talk about this later, but while this show does have some notably really good voice actors, there are some parts that are really hokey.
Oh yeah, for
English
sure.
in the English dub.
Totally.
So I could see that transition happening if it happened midway for you. That's interesting, Skyler. Cool.
About halfway.
Yeah. Cool. 3 out of 10 anime. 3 out of 10 anime.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's dive into technical. I think we can. I think we discussed so much during enjoyment. We might be able to keep this a little more concise. So we'll do our best here to get all of you into this technical discussion. It's still going to be juicy. Thanks for sticking with us. Maybe stand up, take a stretch, take a breath, get ready for some more anime discussion. So just as a reminder for everybody listening, you can find our rubrics, both our personal enjoyment and our technical rubrics, online on our website, 310anime.com, 310anime.com. Follow along with us on this rubric, and maybe ahead of time think, what do you think we're going to give it based on our discussions? We have 4 categories: art, story, characters, and delivery. We always start with art. Art includes the music, the animation, sound design, art style, intro and outro. Skyler, what's a 1? What's a 5?
All right. 1, terrible. The composition is frequently ugly, messy, disjointed, bland, boring, repetitive, and poorly done. Whereas a 5, exceptional. The composition is always beautiful, cohesive, fitting, engaging, notable, ambitious, and expertly performed.
And what's a 3 for all of our categories?
Meh. On par with what you would expect from a decent show. It doesn't stand out for being exceptionally good or bad.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I start things off with a one note?
Yeah, go for
Go
it.
for it.
And it's that the music in the show was pretty meh. It was fine.
You
it
know,
was super repetitive.
I want to flavor that. Yes, like it actually fit the moods they're going for really well, but they use the same stuff for 5 effective seasons of the show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really wish they spent a little more on the music score, because it would have been really nice to have some variety
yes,
in some of the musical themes and the way that they were, because you can still have a theme while having different versions of it that have different moods. The score was just so small. The track list was so small, and it was really repetitive. So, like, the music was meh. I'm just gonna throw that note out there.
Yep. I agree. I want to throw out on the art and art design. It's fairly typical anime, though they did pay, on general, more attention to shading and color diversity in the portrayal of scenes. So I would put this as a plus up. Like it's not terribly ambitious, but it's respectable and better than typical art and animation.
The caveat I would throw out is that this was back in 2009 to 2010. So, keeping its age in account.
Yeah, for its time, it was probably even more exceptionally good.
Yeah, and that's actually what other shows came out 2000, like in that time sparrow.
Yeah, I was just looking. So 2010 anime include things like Durara, which is a show.
It's a show that exists.
2010 popular ones. Naruto Shippuden was coming out. One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail. Like, basically all the big ones were coming out at that time, which I wouldn't praise any of them for their animation either. Dragon Ball Z Kai, Inuyasha, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds.
Oh no. The last Airbender movie came out that year too.
Yeah. So I'd say it's right in the category of all those big ones.
Well, I want to shout out on animation here that it wasn't every fight scene, but almost any fight scene involving swords or weapons, physical weapons, was not just like Dragon Ball Z characters clashing. It was interactions and many blocks, parries, and environmental interactions to get those fights through. Very consistently so. It wasn't ever all of them, but it was most of them.
Yep.
Yeah. And Braydn and Brett, you'll find this interesting, but Arakawa Under the Bridge was also this year. For those not in the know, that is what our current anime club show is.
Okay, well,
it's just another like art reference of like, okay, this is the run that it's in. So
no, hold on. Don't do that. Arakawa is not a good art reference for any decade ever. Okay.
I mean, I'll give it ambitious. I don't know what it was trying to do, but it was going someplace.
It is not trying to be a good-looking show. Okay.
No.
Anyway.
It's in that era of like techniques and stuff that they had access to.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I'm just scrolling through this list, and so I agree with you, Braydn.
Thank you. It's easy when we agree. I want to shout out notes towards the opening and outros. While most of them are not notable to me, I think a fair amount of them are iconic. Like if you showed the intro or like even like showed the intro music to some people, they're like, oh, I know what this is. It tugs at my heartstrings as core anime because it's tied to Fullmetal Alchemist. Specifically, my favorite intro was the fourth one with the corridor. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but that's the one I think the most energy out of all the songs.
Yeah, I have actually I think a couple of the opening and closings in my Spotify playlist. I'm trying to remember which ones.
Nice. Most of them I think are just kind of typical shonen anime stuff. That's what it feels like. That's what it tastes like. That's kind of what it exists for. It's
with the exception that the intros have spoilers, like all intros.
Okay. Actually, I have to save it because it's actually a note for delivery. But there's one that pisses me off in here. We'll talk about it in delivery.
The other weird thing too is it's like, this was also the show because this was one of my first animes, and so this was also one where I realized I was like, oh man, I'm looking forward to that fight. Never happens.
Oh, from like manga to
no, from like the opening or the closing. Oh, well, there'll be like this intense like battle scene. Like, ooh, that's gonna be exciting, but then it never ever happens. It's like,
I don't know if that's art. I don't know what that would be.
No. When we're talking about the opening and closing, that's the segment that
series. Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Like,
well,
it full on shows what's his name, the bad guy from the war. Oh crap, what was his name? Kibley. Full on shows him swallowing a philosopher's stone in the intro for that season. You're just, or that arc, and you're like, all right, cool. Like, that's not going to be a surprise. It shows like certain characters. Anyway, the entire winter arc with Kimley and Sloth. It just shows what happens in the whole season in the freaking intro.
I'm glad you guys are taking the efforts to flavor this section, because I think we're saying there's not much to talk about here. From what we've kind of talked about, where I want to say we're talking somewhere 3 to 4-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're quite reaching to 4. What do you guys think?
The composition is often beautiful, cohesive, fitting, engaging, notable, ambitious, and expertly performed.
Honestly, I'm good either way. You guys 3.5 to 4. I'd be happy with either of those, to be honest. I could go either direction.
I'll tell you, coming into this episode, to this recording, I was feeling a 4. Like, that's what I had kind of locked in my brain from watching the anime. But from our discussion, I'm realizing more and more how many things are typical about this. And while I do love the animation of the swordplay specifically, and I think the animations of plus quality, it's probably around a 3.5.
I would agree.
I'm gonna extra lock in my 3.5 because. And I'm not just trying to harp on something I didn't like. I genuinely think it is lazy when a lot of your animation is chibi 2D sticky, like sticker characters. And it was all the time in the show. Like, they would switch to that animation style so often that it not only got to be old, but I mean, it was just kind of... I mean, I don't want to say lazy, like a lot of people worked really hard on the show, but but that animation just got really old and overused, and I don't think it served the show well.
I appreciate that they did use multiple styles of anime, like art styles, but I agree that it didn't do anything especially notable and maybe overplayed a little bit. So it probably fits around average for doing that. Yeah.
So I agree, 3.5.
What are you thinking, Skyler?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the chibi portion, but because that's more of just like the stylistic decisions that was made.
Sure.
Where it's like they didn't do bad on the chibi portions. They executed probably on the chibi portions exactly as they needed to. It wasn't that difficult to do, sure. But it's not like they botched it. Sure.
I guess that's where I'm getting at with the, in our 4 category, it says ambitious and expertly performed. I don't see that as being ambitious or engaging or expertly performed like that much.
They did all right with it.
Yeah, I think they did fine, but fine isn't ambitious,
isn't
notable,
helping our 4 score resolve.
Engaging.
Right.
So what are you thinking around there, Skyler? What's your score and number coming?
I'm good with the 3.5, because again, as I was scrolling through that list, it seems pretty normal for that era of animation, but better.
Yeah, I'd agree. In fact, let me just really quickly, like I say, Naruto Shippuden was coming out at that exact same time. I just want to give a quick note on what we scored Naruto Shippuden for.
Ooh, I haven't heard this yet. I haven't been recording yet.
In our bonus episode here. I don't have my notes open for it yet, but I believe that we actually gave Shippuden like a 4 or 4.5.
Okay.
And I will say that my notes on Shippuden versus Brotherhood, I think Shippuden was I think it was more ambitious, and I think that the music and sound design went a lot further than in Brotherhood. Like, in fact, one of the discussions we had is about that whole piece. So go check out that episode to compare two shows coming out at the exact same time. So yeah, even thinking about our Shippuden score, I would say I'd put Brotherhood at 3.5.
Okay, lock that boy in.
Sweet. All right, let's go on to story. Story includes plot devices, tone/mood, continuity, world building, pacing, rules and systems, tropes. Skyler, what do you got?
5, exceptional. The story was always consistent, well-paced, comprehensible, consummate, on point with mood and tone, and unique. And then do you want me to read the one?
We do, yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Terrible. The story was frequently nonsensical, inconsistent, boring, confusing, ambiguous, unoriginal, and disappointing.
I'm going to say...
Yep.
I'm going to say my gut reaction is to go all the way to 5. It is. It's one of the greatest stories in anime. However, we talked about so many things where even Skyler said, I agree, poor writing. Yeah, that's poor writing. I agree, that's weak. That I don't think we can go all the way to a 5.
Yeah, that's where it kind of comes to, is like, does the excellent thing it does do, is the main story arc, do enough to overpower its negative notes? Because it has negative notes. It does.
And that's why, as much as I would hate to do it, I would give it a 4.5. Because for 5, the keyword being always, it wasn't always. Whereas for good, the story was often consistent. Yes, but it deserves more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually completely agree. Like, I don't think I would give it any less than a 4.5, but I also don't think I'd give it any more than that.
Again, I had some numbers coming into this one. It was the same kind of talk because, like, they did this incredible main story thing, and it's at these crazy, the solid, hard magic system that they kept to, right? And had all these arcs with all these things coming together. And while there's like, there's that inconsistency or that convenience here and there, these little biting nits. I bring it up again, the North Arc had a lot of those. There's a lot of weird things that had to be conveniently swung this way or that way without proper explanation or really even earnest pacing that kind of leaves that whole arc as a black mark against the anime.
And I think I'm going to... Go ahead.
So while there is a very tight mainline story, there is a black hole, and that's why it takes it down from me from a 5 to a 4.5.
And I'm going to call back to something Skyler said earlier, which I actually agreed with him completely when he said it. I don't think I supported him enough when he did, which is that the ending didn't land so well because it felt rushed. Especially when he's like shooting a Kamehameha at the stars and God is talking, and it's like, it's pretty confusing. And so like, I think those things contribute to it being like, yeah, it's an incredible story. In fact, my number coming into this episode was 5. I was like, this is the 5. But then as we talked, and even Skyler was like, yeah, this and this. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think 4.5 is like a super good 4.5. Like a crazy good 4.5. Like we can't emphasize.
Falling down to a 4.5.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
This is a 4.74, 4.74, but we don't give 0.75, so we got to go 4.5. Like, that's what I'm...
Yep.
Yeah.
It has some glaring issues. We're going to lock it in. 4.5.
All right, 4.5 it is. Okay. It's such a good story. It's incredible. It is incredible. Like, it spans from 1483, I think, to like the 1900s.
Yes, in 60 episodes.
In 60 episodes. Funnily enough, the main story occurs in about like 3 months. So you get all from 1930s, 1430s to 1900s, but most of the show happens in 3 months. Like,
Yeah,
the ability that they tell that span in is really incredible.
Listeners, you might can tell by our rushing of that particular story point that we are well into recording at this point. But it cannot be understated that they overlapped governments, military hierarchies, magic systems, civilian interactions, mechanical villages, wars, the reasons behind each of those wars, falls of empires,
Deity systems.
and another form of alchemy, the alchemy,
Relationships.
and relationships.
That's
We'll get into more
characters.
characters, but this is chunky boy. This is a big boy storytelling that had some glaring issues, and that's why it's a 4.5.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Even thinking about some of the shows that we've done and looking at the scores we've given for story, like the top scores we've given for story. This is like our 4th highest rated show. Like, our 5 shows for story include Demon Slayer, Steins Gate, and A Place Further Than the Universe.
Yeah.
This is just barely below those. So it's like,
Yep.
yeah. Anyway. Okay. Carrying on. Okay. This goes into characters, design, development, motivation, action/inaction, relationships, and personality. Skyler, what's a 1 and a 5?
1, terrible. The characters are frequently unreasonable, confusing, inconsistent, unreasonably static, dynamic, and annoying. 5, exceptional. The characters are always understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately static, dynamic, and relatable.
What are you thinking, Skyler?
I think that they did really, really good on most of the characters.
Agree. Yeah, I agree. Who stands
further,
out?
yes.
Skyler, who stands out in your mind? Who stands out in your mind for like some of the really, really good ones, maybe some of the less good ones?
Well, funnily enough, like the main characters, naturally, even some of the side characters where you would expect them to be more static, there was still a good amount of development and progression that happened on these side characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something that was actually kind of impressive.
I want to shout out here, like, the chimeras near the end. They end up being fairly static, but the whole reason why they turn sides and their influences in their representation of how they, or the reasons why they helped Edward or Al and how they interact with the world were uniquely theirs.
Yeah. And to be clear for our audience, we don't mind static characters if they are adequately static, like if they fulfill that purpose because that's what they need to bring to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And if it makes sense with the world and their character design.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I kind of threw out that shout out that even some of the side characters that you don't normally expect progression from, you still got it.
Yeah.
It felt like there was more on scrolling through. It's like, okay, which characters were inappropriately static or dynamic?
I'm going to toss in the first thing that's said in this episode. Olivier Armstrong. She was weird. She was kind of, I don't know, flat in a weird way or tropey in a unfortunate way. Like we already had a strong women comparison of the Armstrongs and then the teacher or the mentor lady and her husband. Like those are as clear as day, but I don't think Olivier did enough to make herself her own independent character compared to other strong independent females that don't need no man. Like she's pretty on her own tempo without being too interesting, in my opinion.
I guess the only thing that I would kind of bring up then with that is, was there anything about her character that didn't mesh with her character? Or was she just a weak character comparatively?
I would lean more towards the weak character comparatively.
Yeah, I think the cast is just so strong and so well written that if someone's not exceptional, they look more dim than they would in another show.
That's a good point.
Like, we could probably transplant Olivier into another show, and she would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
it's like
agreed.
it's like the diamond sitting next to the artificially created thing is like, oh yeah, the diamond looks great, but you take that artificially created thing and you put it next to a rock, and you're like, wow, that looks amazing.
I'll give
Anyway.
you that. Yes, there was. She
Yeah.
had some interesting interaction, especially when she was dealing with Wrath, and said, "No, I killed your commander because he was an a-hole, and you need me on your side, not that guy I killed." That was interesting. That's pretty cool. But she
Yeah,
honestly,
and-
she kind of just strong-armed a lot of things in kind of a predictably brutal way that wasn't very interesting comparatively.
But that was her character.
I know, but it wasn't a good character. It was weak. I don't care if it's her character. It was weak, bro.
I think other characters that may fit on the weaker side, like in my opinion, Lan Fan, I think was really not a super strong character.
Sure. Yeah, she was very static.
Cornello, which just fit the trope of church is evil. But honestly, like, going through the whole list of characters, that's all I got.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Because
Especially the homunculus gang. Like, good
Oh my
freaking
goodness.
glory.
honestly, Fury King Bradley could carry the entire cast on his shoulders. And I'm going to say it. I think Edward Elric was on the weaker side of these awesome cast of characters. Not as far as Olivier or Lan Fan. I
No.
think Edward Elric is more in the middle. Mostly because, yes, he was obnoxious for a lot of the time in times when it didn't need to be that way.
And I know you're going to hit me, Brett. But I'm going to toss Mustang into that corner, too.
No, that's fine. I personally liked him. I don't
Yeah.
think he's the strongest technical character.
Yeah.
I think characters like King Bradley, again, Greed, even Hughes, and especially Hohenheim. Like, those characters are just like, whew, they're in like the stratosphere.
Yes.
Well, and I guess to me, where I'm looking at their motivation, their development, which we've already mentioned, and their action in action, they did really well on all of those, even for the ones that we mentioned as being on the weaker side.
Yeah.
Like, for their development, they were still good. Their motivations were consistent and made sense. Their action in action for what they were doing, completely acceptable. Relationships, that's maybe where they get a dock, but that's not what kind of show this was.
I
That
mean,
wasn't
their
the
relationships
focus.
were very interesting.
They were,
Like,
there
the
were
interactions
still
between the
relationships.
Chinese crew and the homunculus or our main crew, and they're like what they
And
did
Izumi
drove them
Curtis.
across the nation to different corners.
Yep. Dr. Marco, who we never even talked about this whole
Dr.
episode.
Marco,
yeah.
you're right. We haven't
Never
brought
even
up
talked
Marco.
about him.
Yeah.
Him like offering himself like, thank goodness, Scar, you found me. Kill me now so I don't perform more atrocities against your people. And like that's everything Scar ever wanted. And then they have to build a relationship because Scar needs him.
Yeah.
Gene Havoc? We haven't even talked about Havoc. He was great.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Well, and even
All right.
there, like, I think a lot of what we've been talking about is maybe personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But even there was like, for the personality of the characters, they were still executed on really well.
Skyler, what are you thinking? What do you propose?
Looking at the characters, not the story associated with them.
Sorry.
And actually,
Stretch yours out a little bit longer. I want to toss this in before you get anywhere serious. On this list of characters is Adolf Hitler.
okay, that's because of the Fullmetal Alchemist movie, and
Yes,
that's
it is.
completely different. That's
And-
not FMAB.
I was so relieved to find out that it was not in the main show and I missed Hitler somehow. That blew my brain.
There's a
Sorry.
reason. There's a reason that the original Fullmetal Alchemist was not received very well. And
Holy smokes.
that's a part to do with
All
it.
right. Putting that away. Okay, go ahead, Skyler. Sorry about that.
For characters, I would honestly give them a 5. Because going through the cast, they were always executed on. They were always understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately static, dynamic, and relatable for what their characters were. We might not have liked some of their characters or what some of the characters did, but for what the characters were and how they behaved throughout the entire series, they were always on point.
They were individuals throughout every wild, crazy scenario of teams and enemies and environmental situations that they were given. They were true and earnest characters of themselves. There were some weaker ones, but I can't think we can have sticking Haikyuu at a 5 and not have that same conversation here. There are so many individual characters in this show. It is beyond respectable what they did for representing the characters. I agree with the 5.
I agree with 5 as well. 5 it is. Boom. Locked in. I did not think we would walk away with story at a 4.5 and characters at a 5, but here we are. All right, delivery. Translation, voice acting for sub and dub, script, edit. Sneeze. Skyler, what's a 1 out of 5?
All right, 1, terrible. The delivery is frequently cheesy, unbalanced, inappropriate, incoherent, and bland. 5, exceptional. The delivery is always believable, balanced, genuine, understandable, elevating, and enriching.
Okay, and I want to lead in with my super gripey, nitpicky as all get out intro qualm I have with the delivery. The 4th intro, which had the song that I like, that had the corridor, right? That corridor is brought up in the 5th season arc, or the 5th parts. Animation. They literally take the scene from the intro in the 4th one and they have it as a direct scene in the final arc where that intro is not a part of. Why? That's it. It's dumb. It's really dumb. I'm sorry.
I know that I know that in art is where we usually talk about the intros and outros, but I do have to say the amount of spoilers in the intro for Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is incredibly disappointing. And not just because, like, here's the thing. There's spoilers in a lot of intros. It's just something about anime that is really stupid that I don't understand. And a lot of great shows have it. Like, To Your Eternity has spoilers like crazy.
Yep.
The thing with this show
that I think spoilers.
The thing I think about this show that makes it so egregious is this story is so complex. You're learning along with the Eldrick brothers. You're like trying to figure this thing out. And so to, in the intro to a new season, have some of the biggest plot points just casually tossed in there as someone who's thinking about the show, that's freaking terrible. That sucks. Don't do that. Stop. Yep. Like, that is it makes me so mad.
We've been talking about this for 2 seasons now, but I think we've finally found a place to bring up where spoilers come from in the intro. That's definitely an edit issue. Don't do that.
Especially when the whole point of your show is to have a complex plot with deep characters whose motivations you're trying to understand. Like they gave away the fact that Führer King Bradley was going to end up fighting Scar in the end. Like, they just gave away so many things that was just so specific to the plot and the confusion and story. I
want to add in here that similar to we don't give bad scores for bad dubs, we also don't give bad scores for spoilers and intros because we just recommend you skip all the intros. But maybe we need to have a discussion for season 3 about throwing that into delivery because it should be noted for your experience of watching the show, just straight up.
If that's the case, then I don't think we'll ever have a 5 ever again.
That's not true. I've seen some good ones.
There's some that don't.
And minor spoilers will be nitpicky. You know what I mean?
It's so rare to have any anime with intros that don't spoil.
Yeah. We got to talk about it. We're not going to put it into this discussion.
We can talk about it later.
That's for a different time. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Although,
subdubs. Yep.
The voice acting was awesome for both. Yes, there were some cheesy parts of the dub, for sure.
Yep.
Braydn, you brought that up.
Yep.
But really, there were some characters that were incredible in the dub.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Wrath.
Really good.
Sneaking. I mean, Alphonse, honestly. He is. Because the transformation from his metal form to when he actually has his human body, that. Like, whoever did the editing on that voice changer, kudos to them. That is very, very good.
There is actually a point that I wanted to bring up, which is that one of the official voice actors, one of them is a English voice actor for one of the characters. I'd have to go hunt down which one it is, though.
One of the Japanese voice actors?
No. So, for like canon for like which voice actor is like the voice of that character. One of the characters, like their official voice, is an English voice actor.
Oh, like in the Japanese credits, it's
something to that effect. I'll have to hunt it down real quick.
You slightly confused me, but sure.
But
I mean, like Lost sounds different from Gluttony. Sounds different from Darius. Sounds different than the father.
Armstrong's voice actor was so good.
Major Armstrong's voice is so good. Scar and his gravelly like hatred just comes through in those voices.
Greed's high-pitched, whiny voice. Yeah, there's a lot to like in the dub
Marcos,
of the show, really.
Like fatherly careness, but also like regret and sorrow comes through in his voice acting.
Sig Curtis, his voice, and even actually Izumi Curtis, I think, had a great female voice actor who had a very I don't want to say masculine, but a very gruff female voice. That was so good. Anyway, and the sub as well. I think the delivery of the sub was also really good.
I can't really name them specifically, but the hokiness is just throughout. It just happens, even with some of the good voice acting characters, where they fall to, like, I don't know, tropey lines they want to make sure to get off. But
yeah,
they still return to excellent individual characters through voice acting pretty consistently. I have another note here I want to mix in.
Do it.
And I didn't realize this until this watch through of mostly the dub of the show. But the dub's English subtitles are extremely good. Extremely good. They are built for people who are deaf. And this is what I mean by that. There are times, especially near the end, I wrote this down and it struck me, where the English on the dub subtitles said, in brackets, Roy remembering in silence. To know that while there is stuff that often happens off screen, at this moment, nobody's talking, Roy is thinking.
Oh, that's really cool.
And that is a snippet of a lot of good denotions of what's happening on screen, even if you can't hear what's going on. For people that actually do need subtitles on their shows, this show does beyond good for them.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yes. Yep.
I want to bring up a point. I think some of our problems with the explanation of the show not only had to do with the pacing, but also with the script. What's your guys' response to that?
I don't have a specific example in mind in response to that, but I kind of instinctively would nod my head and say likely. I don't doubt it. There was especially, I don't know, maybe even more of the Briggs content could have been explained way better if the characters emoted or voiced more correct things about what they were trying to do instead of just what happened. I
don't think it's a big thing.
I don't think
I'm
it's
specifically
a big thing
thinking about the last few episodes explaining the relationship with God and all the stuff.
Right.
Like it just got a little bit circular in its definitions, and it was a little easy to lose. I'm not going to like dock the whole show for it. I'm just bringing it up as a flavor.
I think that was a pacing problem, where they ran out of time, and they just didn't have the time, and that was one of the docks in the story category.
Sure.
Possibly. Sure. I'm not completely confident that more time would have made it clear, but personally, I want to add for that scene in particular, Brett, that I enjoyed the abstractness of it at that level, yet I also acknowledge that it's reportedly a confusing issue for a number of people. Like, I get why people wouldn't like that section, but I personally didn't have an issue with it.
Gotcha.
So it sits in the abstract, maybe not strongly.
Yeah.
So let's talk rubric. I want to say we talk around probably our 4s and 5s again, where the delivery is always believable, balanced, genuine, understandable, elevating, and enriching. And there's a good chance that the exceptional thing this show does takes it over to a 5, but it's not quite always. Is it a 4.5? That's kind of what I've been dancing around, but I'm kind of reaching up towards the 5 after our discussion, because they really did a tremendous work with the voice acting and subtitles. That's very notable. I don't know if it's that notable, but I want to take around a 4.5 to a 5. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think I'd be good with a 4.5.
Okay.
I agree. What are you thinking, Sky?
Well, it's just while it, like you said, it was really, really good. However, I don't know how to phrase it. Because the counterpoint is like, okay, where wasn't the delivery good? Where did they drop the ball? And I am struggling to come up with examples or scenes where I was like,
I'll lean back to I have a pretty strong almost every episode happenstance where some characters had to perform hokey voice lanes that seem out of place for the character.
That's where I'm coming in with the script piece. I think that if we really take that into account, that I'm in the 4.5 range, because some things the characters had to say didn't need to be pulled over from the manga. Like, we didn't need the 7th cheesy joke in a row and the 12th time Winry yelling at Ed for hurting his armor and screaming about it. And like, I think a 4.5 is really, really high. In fact, I'm gonna hit you guys with this. We've never given a show a 4.5.
No, we've given 2 of 5, right?
Wow.
We've given 3 of 5.
Oh, wow.
And we've given like 12 of 4 or 10 of 4, but we've never given a 4.5.
Okay.
I would go a 4.5, but I do think pieces of the script, particularly the way they chose to write the humor into the show, and I think that is script, I think that alone keeps it from a 5, personally, because there's so many people that have issue with that I think it could be pretty unanimously agreed that was not a well-written part of the show, script-wise.
Okay.
I can agree with that.
I have nothing further to add here. I think we're in agreement.
Okay.
The delivery,
Let's do it.
We might need, like, again, like spoilers and crap, we might need to breadth our conversations around delivery, but I'm happy that we've developed this section, and for where it is right now, it's a 4.5.
Yep. All right. So that brings us to a 3.5 in art, a 4.5 for story, 5 for characters, 4.5 for delivery, for a total final score of 8.75.
Wow. Way to
Braydn.
be. Way to stinking be.
Braydn or Skyler? Who does it now?
I got
Braydn.
it. I still love doing it. So, okay.
Where's that put us?
That ties it for a 5th, 6th space in our top-rated technical anime of all time. It is tied with the episode I did called Ping Pong the Animation at 8.75, which there cannot be 2 shows more different than Ping Pong the Animation and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. But
Are we
that's
about
fine.
to get canceled for giving Fullmetal Alchemist Brother the same technical score as Ping Pong?
Hey, we gave it a worse score than, I don't know, some other ones on this list.
I'm just okay.
Well,
I have no doubt.
Spike's family.
I haven't. To be fair, I haven't heard the ping pong episode yet because it's not
Same
live.
here.
I actually am super excited to listen to our podcast as a listener because I've never heard it. So I'm gonna wait to make that question until after I hear it.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, Spy X Family, we give it a really high score. Is it that much of it? Anyway, that's what I'm talking about. There's nuances between all of our discussions. Yeah, you gotta go listen to the episode. Anyway, it's only behind a place it's just behind Spy X Family and Steins Gate, with both got a 9. And it's just ahead of Violet Evergarden and our review of Sword Art Online, the first 14 episodes. Or wait. No, I skipped one. Oh, no. Sorry. Violet Evergarden and The Great Pretender both got 8.5s.
Here's okay. Legitimate question for you guys.
Hit.
Not trying to throw a wrench in the plans.
You never do that.
No. I never do that. I'm just, I'm thinking about the show, and I'm thinking back to our discussion on art, and I'm wondering if 3.5 was the right score, simply because, I was thinking about the animation that was coming out at the time, and specifically for like the fight scenes, the character design, the art style. I feel like it's just a little bit better than a lot of the shows that were coming out in 2010. Like,
Now,
Inuyasha looks fine, but it doesn't.
Compare it against Naruto Shippuden, and
I
that's
did compare
why
it against-
that's what convinced you for a 3.5, because that only made it a 4.
Well, it either got, like I say, Shippuden got a 4 or 4.5, but again, Shippuden had something this show definitely didn't, which is the music and the sound design. Came in really strong there. Like, the music and sound design from Naruto defined an entire generation. Like today, you will see people like running through the streets or making the noises of like the Sharingan or the this or the that. But I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm looking at the score, I'm wondering if Fullmetal doesn't deserve a 4.
Let me ask this then. So I have our our list pulled up. Here are shows that we have given a 4 in art to. So to kind of compare against. The Ancient Magus Bride, Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions, Jujutsu Kaisen, Cells at Work, Ranking of Kings, and Licorice Recoil.
Dang, those are our 4s for art?
Those are our 4s in art.
Jeez, man. We might need to just do a pass on our art section. I'm going to just say that right now. Now that we've finally broken the bubble of what a 5 score is, we might need to revisit some of these and breath that out a little bit. No, Brett, I don't think you've convinced me. I don't think there's more here to talk about then.
Yeah, our 3.5s include only 2 other shows.
Haikyuu and The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime are the other 2 3.5s.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm back on board with the. I'm back on board.
We're
with
locked in,
3.5.
ladies and gentlemen. Lock it in. All right, one more time.
Yeah,
8.75. There it is.
Yeah, I don't think Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood can compete with Jujutsu Kaisen, Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions, the art style of Ranking of Kings.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Ancient Magus Bride was also beautiful, by the way.
Let's scoot on.
That was Skyler's bonus episode. Me and Bridget were on it, and that's a really pretty That show's interesting. Man, that show is interesting. All right,
good. I gotta watch that episode. I haven't seen that one yet.
All right, man. Thank you all for sticking around for the full 2 hours of our discussion about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. What did we forget? What didn't we touch on? I'm sure there's a lot. What do you wish we talked about? What do you want to talk about? Put it in the comments. What are your thoughts on Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood? Please leave us your thoughts and suggestions. You can also find me on my anime list. I forward all of the feedback and thoughts to Braydn and Skyler each week, so feel free to leave some comments on there too if you'd like. You can find me tagged as Zenieth, Zenieth. You can find us on 310anime.com, 310anime.com. Before we go, we're going to give some really quick recommendations for what we think you should watch next. Okay.
Yep.
Braydn.
We're going to do that. Okay. I'm going to lead in with easily my strongest recommendation, because this, again, there's nothing really that holds up to the grand conspiracy of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. There just isn't. So I'm actually recommending a movie, the anime movie from Studio Ghibli, Lapida Castle in the Sky. It's a show. It's a interesting world of ancient civilizations, of technology, of gorgeous music and sound play that brings about many levels of characters through civilian life and military and high-end reaching towards godhood. That whole arc is there. It has the best flavoring of Fullmetal Alchemist that I could think of across my anime recommendations. So my first recommendation is Lapida Castle in the Sky, the movie.
Sweet. Skyler.
I'm actually going to throw out Spy Family. It has some similar era vibes.
Whoa, good gravy. All right, hit it.
It's kind of a different source, but it has some similar era vibes. And there's also like this political turmoil thing with like, again, there's espionage, and so there's some sort of conspiracy going on. It's not Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood level, but it's something. But it's way more light. It's way brighter than Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But still is deep.
Yes, in its own way.
I don't know.
I didn't say as deep. It is deep.
Okay.
It is deep.
Okay.
It's deep if you're like a new parent or you're married or you have some of these.
It dives into things. It's not surface level. I'll give you that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. For me, this is easy. Steins Gate.
That was becoming my next one. Yep.
Steins Gate English dub. You must only watch Steins Gate dubbed in English.
Yep.
Do not watch the subtitles. It ruins the show.
Yep.
There's conspiracy. There's an incredible plot. It's slow for the first half, like a roller coaster. And then you see the hill, and it is a wild ride from episode 12 forward, or halfway through. So, just definitely Steins Gate. Braydn.
Yep. Well, you took my Steins Gate, and I mean, again, nothing I have on my list can even hold a candle to what Fullmetal Alchemist brings to the table. So another excellent anime that has a nice story with consequences is Sword Art Online, the first 14 episodes. That arc, you don't have a crazy complex world, but you have a system that makes sense and have characters that are interesting and create this very fanciful world. It's nice. It birthed an entire it helped bring upon the isekai era that we are currently, I think, harking out of, hopefully, in anime, and for a good reason.
Dude, we're deep into it.
Man, never be calling out of here. I just keep ignoring them. That's my secret. So anyway, the first 14 episodes of Sword Art Online.
Skyler.
Well, if we're just going through my 10 list, then the next one on the list is not... It's hotly debated about being an anime, but Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
There you go.
So you can argue whether it's an anime or not because it's a Western animation, but still solid story, solid characters.
It's Western directed, but they did use Asian animators and studios to help animate it. Which, by the way, if you watched Avatar as a kid and you're a grown-up now and you think it's a kid's show, go watch it. You will enjoy it in a whole new level. This is something Pixar does that, like, you watch a Pixar movie as a kid, you love it. You watch a Pixar movie as a teenager, whoa, different movie, you love it. You watch a Pixar movie as an adult, whoa, you love it. You watch it as an old adult, whoa, it's a different movie. Yeah, go watch Avatar. I'm going to say Demon Slayer. Go watch Demon Slayer. 5
Just
art.
Period.
5 art, 5 story, 4.5 characters, 4 delivery, 9.25 total. Go watch Demon Slayer. Braydn.
My last string that I'm pulling towards Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is To Your Eternity. Of characters that you don't think are going to tie into a larger story arc, of a character of like there being bigger things going on in the world that we don't understand, of there being really real written characters that are voice acted with passion. You're going to find those things here. You're not going to find Grand Conspiracy again. That's nowhere to be found. But there's enough interesting stuff here. I think more people will recommend. Should watch it. To Your Eternity. And season 2 is coming out right now, and I haven't seen any of it. I am bewildered at how that show ended and where this is picking up on.
I am waiting till it's fully aired because I can't stand watching shows as they come out, and I'm just like, I get notifications on my phone like episode 4 is out. I'm like, Skyler.
I'm gonna throw out Astra: Lost in Space.
Hey, yeah.
So that one is a good one, and so it's got a solid story, and there's a bit of like mystery, and there is like a conspiracy that you're slowly unraveling as you go through it. It's a good watch. It's a solid one.
And it has a great ending.
Yeah.
And it's only 12 episodes, right?
Something like
Yes, 12 episodes.
All right, my last one, Fire Force. Grand Conspiracy, big story.
Oh, that's not bad, actually. Yeah.
The dopest sound design of any anime I have ever seen. It is impeccable in the sound design department. I think season 1 is better than season 2, but it's got really cool animation, great fight scenes in season 1, and the sound design is just mind-blowing. If you have yourself like a nice pair of headphones, an amp DAC, something, just get your nicest pair of headphones and watch it turn it up a little bit. Fire Force. All right. That's all we got. 2 minutes, 15 seconds on the dot to get through our recommendations. Can't thank all of you enough. If you've made it through this long episode, you are a champion.
If you've made it through these 2 seasons, you are a hero to us. Thank you so much.
Yes. Please let us know what you want to see in season 3. Leave a comment. Send us an email. Go to our website, 310anime.com, 310anime.com. If you don't have Facebook, that's cool. Send us a tweet. You don't have Twitter? That's cool. Make a comment on a TikTok video. You don't have TikTok? That's okay. Send us an email. No email? Send us a carrier pigeon. Every way to get a hold of us is available on our website, on the social tab. Go check that out. Thank you again for holding out and being with us through season 2. We can't wait to see you in season 3. Braydn, Skyler, do you have anything you want to say to the people while we check out for our off season?
No, nothing really comes to mind. Just
thanks
so much for watching.
You've been watching too much anime. Go touch some grass, you weeb. Get out of here. Come back for season 3.
On that note, I'm going to go touch some grass. But before we do, I have to say a huge thank you to Braydn and Skyler. We are 3 equal partners in this thing. I'm usually the voice doing the talking of the script, but it's only because my voice is the most obnoxious and we figured that would get the most attention. Braydn and Skyler do just as much for the show as anyone. Braydn with his incredible insights, Skyler with his great technical mind, and then me with my weirdness. We are 3 out of 10 anime fans who recommend you check out this podcast if you ever get reincarnated into another world. Signing off for season 2. We will see you in season 3. Until then, Johnny.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.
Fullmetal Alchemist.